All right, we're going to transition to our second speaker. So we have snails and whales today. Snails are complete. Come on up, whales.
Thank you. My name is Maxwell. I have a little story to tell. About 15 or so years ago, my wife and I went on a whale watching trip out of Boston. And she gets seasick easily, so she spent the whole trip in the head. When she got back in, she went to the tour guide and she said, "I didn't see any whales." The tour guide said, "We saw dozens of them." Yeah, she wanted her money back because she didn't see any whales. My background is computer science and linguistics. My graduate program I was in at Northwestern combined computer science and linguistics, and we were one of the early workers on artificial intelligence back in, now we're talking 68 to 72, when the computers were as big as this whole facility. Obviously, things have changed. So my interest in cetaceans, especially in back then dolphins and porpoises, came during the 60s and 70s. As things developed, and we'll talk about it, as things developed and artificial intelligence got involved in the last 5 or 6 years, the development of communications between cetaceans has increased 100-fold, 1,000-fold. So I'm going to go through a little history of our knowledge of whales, and let's see.
The other clicker will work.
Oh, the other. Okay.
Maybe. Hold on. More tech support. We'll just stop the share and then we'll restart. Okay, I'm gonna try. Make that thing go away at the top.
There it goes. Okay, we're on.
Okay, one more time. Redo. Do you need my presence up there?
Yeah, it's over.
Do you do it manually?
Everybody to the rescue.
I tried that.
Did it work?
No. So back in the 60s to 70s, my interest is in communications, and my real belief was that marine animals talk to each other. And in fact, back in 2018, I gave a talk to the Florida Gulf Coast University Academy program called Languages of the Deep. So I've had a pretty long time feeling about this speech patterns of cetaceans. So let's talk about cetaceans and what they are. We have the toothed and the toothless, the balleens. I'm going to be focusing on the toothed whales and particularly the sperm whale, but also dolphins and porpoises. So these are the total family of cetaceans, the Mysticetes and the Odontocetes and the tooth and the baleen group. The blue whale is the largest. It goes up to a couple of 100 feet. The sperm whale is the largest on the tooth side, and it goes up to 60 feet. And then there's the orca, beluga, and dolphins and porpoises. And I'm going to primarily focus on the sperm whale and a little bit about dolphins and porpoises. Their sound style is clicks and whistles, and they're predators. So back in the 1800s, I wasn't there, and I just heard about this. My kids think I was there. There was actually sounds that the whalers heard in the ocean because of the wooden hulls of the ships. So they were able to hear. In fact, even in 4th century BC, Aristotle heard porpoises, and they all thought they were communicating. And the interesting thing about the whalers is that when they killed a particular member of a pod, a whale pod, the other members of the pod would head into the wind. Now, these are sailing ships. So the pod heads into the wind. What happens? Whale ship can't follow the pod. Interesting, Moby Dick. Some of us read this in middle school. Really should try it again. It's really interesting. There's a whole chapter just on the head of a whale, but 135 chapters, he never talked about, even though he knew it, he never talked about whales talking to each other. So the interesting thing about whales talking is that the actual sounds travel hundreds, even thousands of miles because of the acoustic medium, water. And water, the speed of sound in water is 4.5 times faster than the speed of sound in air. And especially with sperm whales, the frequency is so low that it travels much farther, hundreds and thousands of miles. So we didn't really study what the sounds of the species of mammals under the water until World War II, and sonar was invented, and the U.S. Navy used sonar to study what was going on under the sea, and so this was a big breakthrough in whales technology and whale sounds. Well, it's interesting, and we've got a couple of these in our touch tag, is the pistol shrimp was the U.S. Navy had a group of people who studied sounds under the water, and the pistol shrimp was one of the things the U.S. Navy decided was an interesting group of colonies, and they told our U.S. submarines to embed themselves in pistol shrimp colonies so that the Japanese couldn't hear or listen to them or know, even though they were present. It's not loud enough, but they're clicking away. They can make a sound up to 230 decibels. So you got a whole colony of a few thousand pistol shrimp in a bed, sounding out around 230 decibels. It creates a sound screen that our U.S. submarines were able to hide in. Now, this is where I started getting interested in it in the 60s and 70s. Dr. John Lilly was an early researcher in porpoise communication, and he and dolphins, and he felt that they were smart enough and he wanted to get them classified as people. He was a little wacky. He was on LSD a lot, and he actually fed the LSD to the dolphins until they stopped them. But then Roger Payne came along, Dr. Roger Payne, and he started looking at the recordings that the U.S. Navy had made for years and years during World War II. And he said, gee, I'm going to put this together into an album. 1970, the Songs of the Humpback Whale album came out, sold 150,000 copies immediately. It went multi-platinum. It was huge. It was the hugest thing that I experienced in the 70s. So they have complex sequences lasting up to 30 minutes, and they're repeated exactly in the same way each time. Now, remember, these sounds are transmitted hundreds, if not thousands of miles. So this is all now, we have 60s and 70s and the 80s, and then what happens? 2000 comes along, 2022, and artificial intelligence comes onto the scene. And someone I've been following, and actually when I did the Languages of the Deep lecture, I talked about her, is Denise Herzing. She does, she lives in Florida, and she does the Wild Dolphin Project.
I've been waiting for this for 40 years.
She's been waiting for artificial intelligence for years.
Has the world's largest collection of dolphin vocalizations. I'm a research scientist at Google DeepMind. Dolphin Gemma is the first LLM trained to try and understand dolphin language.
I put some explanations.
Will input sound.
Once a dolphin starts doing a vocalization like a whistle, it can try to complete the end of it.
When you're doing a Google search, right, finishing your sentence, right?
Dolphin Gemma has Denise's data and sort of encapsulates a lot of the knowledge and experience she has in it. But it's also small enough we can train it with more data as we get it. We can actually keep on fine-tuning the model as we go, and hopefully get better and better understanding of what the dolphins are producing.
We do not know if animals have words. Dolphins can recognize themselves in the mirrors. They use tools, so they're smart, but language is still the last barrier. So feeding dolphin sounds into an AI model like Dolphin Gemma will give us a really good look at if there are patterns, subtleties that humans can't pick out.
If dolphins have language, then they probably also have culture.
You're going to understand what priorities they have. What do they talk about? The goal would be to someday speak dolphin, and we're really trying to crack the code.
You know, what's interesting is when you think about what we do, we force it, when I'm talking to you, I'm forcing air out through my lungs, through my vocal cords, into my nasal cavity and mouth. I change the sounds, just by changing the relationship of the parts of my mouth. And I'm producing this sentence. And this sentence that I'm producing right now is not a sentence you've heard before. I'm just making it up as I speak. And what's happening? It's going into your ear. You have little hairs in your ear. It vibrates the hairs create electricity, send those electrical signals into your brain, and you're understanding what I'm saying instantly. Well, my contention, and I'll try to show it, is that the same thing is going on with cetaceans. And that's what Denise Herzing is also trying to prove. They have methods of production, they have methods of reception, and they understand each other. And they have different dialects, different whales in different parts of the globe, different whales in the same parts of the globe, different pods have different ways that they structure their sounds. And we're calling them dialects. So two pods in the northern Pacific will have different structures in the way they produce sound. Okay, so everyone has always thought it was Morse code all these years, but scientists have now, there's a project called Project CETI, Cetacean Translation Initiative. So you need to listen, you'll hear this, And you hear different volume, you'll hear this, then you'll hear, then you'll hear different. So here is what a sperm whale's head looks like. The sperm whale head is 50 feet long. 1/3 of his body is his head. The sperm whale has, and if you read chapter 74 of Moby Dick, you'll get it in very detail, more than you want. But there's two major organs in the sperm whale's head: the spermaceti organ and the so-called junk. Remember, these names were developed by whalers. Whalers were killing sperm whales for their wax, which is what spermaceti organ looks like. It's a very thick, waxy substance. And then the junk, which is an oily material they were using for lamps, to light lamps. And then, of course, they were using every part of a whale. Interesting thing about the sperm whale, it has its jaw, its mouth is very small, and the teeth are only on the bottom of the jaw. So what happens is the air comes from the lungs, goes up the right nasal passage, and then bounces off what's called the phonic lips. So when that air hits the phonic lips, what's doing this is the phonic lips. That's what's creating that sound. It's the phonic lips doing that, sends that signal back to the rear of the mouth or the head, bounces off through the spermaceti organ, bounces off the back of the head of the sperm whale, sends it then through the junk, the oily part, and it goes out through the head. So it goes right through the head. It goes from the lungs to the phonic lips, back through the spermaceti organ, and then back through the junk and out. That's what the process is. And by the way, interesting side, it only uses the right nasal passage to send if it's going to make a sound, because when it is diving and doesn't want to make a sound, just wants to preserve, it can self-contain its breathing. It doesn't need the blowhole. Blowhole on a sperm whale is off center too, and it's shaped like an X.
On the surface, sperm whale vocalizations look nothing like human speech. The whales click. But if we look more closely, we find near identical parallels between human vowels and whale clicks. So how do we produce vowels? We say all vowels by vibrating our vocal cords, by adjusting the shape of our mouth. We can say different vowels.
Remember, I'm a linguist, so this is.
When we say A, we lower our jaw.
I just want to mention something. He'll say, when we say A, he means he's using the name we use for the letter. The actual sound is ah.
These look nothing like human speech. The whales click. But if we look more closely, we find near identical parallels between human vowels and whale clicks. So how do we produce vowels? We say all vowels by vibrating our vocal cords, by adjusting the shape of our mouth. We can say different vowels such as A and I. When we say A, we lower our jaw. When we say I, we place the tongue much higher. E. These different mouth shapes result in different resonant frequencies, or these shadowed bars. For A, the bars are close together. For I, they are far apart. So let's look at the whales. Just as humans have vocal cords, whales have phonic lips. Just as we have mouths, they have an air sac which they change the shape of. But still, they click. On the surface, their clicks sound nothing like our vowels, but that's because their clicks are slow and our vowels are fast. We needed to change our perception of timing. If we remove silences from their clicks and make their clicks faster, more adjusted to human perception of timing, patterns start appearing that look similar to our vowels. The red arrows point to shadowed bars, just like those we saw in humans. We found two vowels so far, the A and the I vowel, and we realized they exchange those vowels in conversation. You can hear what their conversation sounds like if we make their clicks faster, more in line with human perception of timing. And the nice thing is that these patterns are so clear, so discrete, that you can take a piece of paper and a pen and start transcribing them with our human letters. These clicks were recorded from a sperm whale named Pinchy, who was communicating with a nearby whale off the coast of Dominica, where SETI's research takes place.
So just to give you a perspective, on the right is a sperm whale brain, is 6 times the size of a human brain. And it has all of the functions of a human brain, the neocortex, all of the different functions that the human brain has. My contention is that whales don't need a complex language like we've developed because they live a much simpler life. They need a language of survival. They need a language of community. They have developed a language that is associated with the type of life that they live. We've developed a very complicated language. Whale communication goes back 25 million years. Human communication from Homo sapiens started around 75,000 years ago. So they precede us by millions of years. So here's what AI is doing. They're taking the clicks. They're making a map like we saw in the video. They're finding patterns. The AI is doing this, and then they're creating a human readable code from these patterns. That's what AI is contributing to this. It's a program called UIGAN. It's a special kind of a program that was developed for this. So what used to be conceived as an alien looking Morse code system has just become much more human-like. Project CD has identified 156 codas. Now codas, just to explain it a little bit, in our language, if we say the word pat, it starts with a p and then an at and then a t, 3 different sounds. We create those 3 different sounds, create a word. Pat. The same structure, the same thing is going on with the whales. They're creating pieces of sounds that, when put together, become a coda or a word. And that identification of the word is what they've identified so far. AI has identified 156 coda patterns. And as we saw in the recording, by adjusting for time, by speeding it up so it's more like human speech. And you can understand human speech if you try to listen to somebody speaking a language you don't understand. You say, hey, can they slow down? That's what we do with this, what we've been doing with the whale speech. We've been slowing it down and then speeding it up. MIT's got a program called the WHAM model, and it generates pseudocodas. So now what they're trying to do is create an artificial language using the whale codas to see if they can communicate with the whale. Now I'm going to go back to what you were talking about. We're destroying this. We're destroying this because pollution and the boats. We were watching some manatees up on the bridge, and a boat came roaring through, and the manatees disappeared. I mean, we really have no respect for what's under the water. unfortunately. This is one of the great things that happens at Rookery Bay, is to learn to respect what's under the water. The touch tank is the best thing to teach young people how to respect what's under the water. So we're creating an environment where it's difficult for the whales to communicate, because the sound isn't able to get through like it could because of all the noise pollution. So we got to listen to these folks, these undersea mammals before it's too late. And the future of the science depends on clearing the smog and allowing the oceans to speak. And there's a lot of people working on it. MIT, University of California, probably FGCU, all sorts of universities that care about this situation. I'm going to leave you with my favorite, a segment of my favorite movie.
This is going to work. Come back.
Don't try humpback.
Oh. Maybe louder, huh?
Don't.
Didn't sound like it.
It doesn't sound pork. It sounds like just as well, we might be hungry.
Don't worry, we have to eat clownfish, ate grilled.
Family group. Thank you. But don't forget Moby Dick. It's a great second read or third read. You read it in middle school, read it again. It's unbelievable. I don't know why they give it to middle schoolers to read, because it's not understandable. I mean, the whole book is about the whale and the structure of the whale and taking the whale apart and examining the head and everything, all the whale parts of that. I've read it 2 more times in the last 10 years, and I know I read it in middle school. I don't remember it. It's torture if you're a middle schooler. Any questions?
Well, it's not exactly what we had an incident about 10 years ago here where 26 whales beached themselves.
Yes, over by Woodland.
Right, well, right south of the island. On Kais Island. And they did the same thing up at Lover's Key. They lost 6 up there and 26 down here. How would they, they must have been communicating because they all did it, the whole pond.
That's the problem, is they function in pods, and where one goes, the other goes, and by the time they're communicating, it's too late for a reaction. The whale population, right now, it's about 1.8 million and globally, but it was 3-4 million. It's an interesting evolution. Whales, they found whale bones in France, far away from the ocean. Originally, 50 million years ago, 60 million years ago, whales were land animals. And they slowly became over the next, up until 35 million years ago, they became sea animals. So before then, that's why they're finding whale skeletons and so on land, because 40 million years ago, they were a land animal.
Did it have legs then, or?
Yes, they had legs. Yeah. Yeah, I had a slide on that, but I was trying to stay within my time. Right? Yes.
When whales break apart from a pod, do they travel in pairs or are they single?
Singly. And it's always the male. The females stay together. The grandmother, the mother, the daughter. They stay together. Once the male whale is old enough, he goes off on his own. So male whales are off by themselves. The whale pods that we see is a grandmother, a mother, or a daughter, and a baby male. But once the male is large enough, he leaves the pod.
I had another question.
Sure.
Okay, the language of whales and dolphins, because one is more like.
Excellent question. Excellent question. Dolphins have 2 phonic lips. Whales have 1 phonic lip. The dolphin phonic lips perform 2 functions. One's a whistle and one's a click.
Yes.
So, it's an interesting differentiation. So they can whistle and they can click. And the reason is the 2 phonic, you remember what I said about the phonic lips? It's like the vocal cord.
Yeah.
Except that it's shut like that.
The whale flaps and the dolphin does it.
There are 2 types. One does that and one is more open,
Okay.
more flexible.
Gotcha. Has the US Navy opened up this study on dolphins to you and other people?
Yes, not to me, but they opened it up to, Denise Orsi. They opened it up to, a University of California and MIT and universities, yes. Yeah, that's where the whole, whale, song and humpback whale came from, was US Navy recordings. Yes. Kathleen.
The horrific documentaries that we see on the whaling industry.
Yes.
Are these fake research vessels still out there capturing and killing like they have in the past?
Let me say this, the biggest thing that happened to, and slowed the whale massacring down was the song of a humpback whale. I mean, where we were massacring whales by the thousands, it made everybody very aware of whales and how important they were to our environment. So it was a big slowdown and a big movement to stop the whale hunting. It hasn't stopped. I mean, Japanese and Chinese are still doing. It stopped it in US, stopped it whaling. Thank you all.